Hello, Scrappy Peeps! Suzanna here today for Ellie's Studio, and I'm sharing with you this two-page layout. It focuses on using the Christmas tab stamp that was part of the November release a few days ago. So I have taped together two pieces of red cardstock, and I am going to create a layout that spans across both sides of the page, and I'm going to use 6 square photos, and then I'm going to use predominantly these pocket cards from the November kit down the bottom. This is a Christmas-based layout, and it is about, so in my blog post over on Ellie's Studio, I wrote about how you have to use funny language because what it's documenting are our current favorites, but they are not our current favorites because A, it's not Christmas, and B, it is not 2019. We're in 2020, so they're the previous Christmas's current favorites. So it's kind of funny to talk about current in the past. But anyway, so my intent is that I'm going to have those 6 photos on the top where I've got that white cardstock there, and then I want to use these pocket cards that move across the page. And I am going to use the stamps, the Christmas tab stamps, to identify and label my photos, but I'm also going to use it to make borders and do some other fun things with it. So I have ahead of time printed my photos, and I have also used a die to cut the pattern paper from the Fa La La paper stack to back those photos with. And what I'm doing now is I'm creating a border. So using the larger of these tabs, I'm just using the diagonal stripe part, and I'm stamping all the way across with my Catherine Pooler stamp, and I am creating a border. So it's kind of a very large, or I should say wide zigzag, or not zigzag, but it's not, yeah, a zigzag really, like if you had zigzag scissors. It is creating that wide zigzag across the page just as a fun border, and that green complements the green that is in the collection. And while I have my stamps out, I am going to go ahead and stamp several different colors using this same actual tab. So it's like a tab that you would find on a file folder. So I'm going to use 2 Catherine Pooler colors, as well as that VersaFine red there. And then I think that is a Kelly Purkey. In fact, I know it's a Kelly Purkey pink that is going to, it's kind of more of a salmony color. That are the colors that are in that stripe that is going to go across the top of this border here to label the photos with. I am actually going to stamp again to get a little bit more variety, and I want that green in there as well. So stamping those off so that I can use those. I'm going to use the die. So from a couple of months ago, the Everyday Metal Tabs die coordinates perfectly with this, and I am going to use that die in a minute to cut these out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the verbiage, or the words, as you can see on the right hand side there, once I've cut them out, to label each of the photos. Something else that I do recommend when you are stamping with these stamps, especially if your stamp is new and you haven't used it before, you can see I have that eraser there. It's just an artist eraser. If you rub that over the stamp, it helps the stamp to be able to hold the pigment, and you don't get that sort of watercolor effect. You'll know what I mean by that if this has happened to you, and that will give you a much cleaner, crisper stamp. So again, this is the Everyday Metals die. I'm working on a magnetic platform, but I like to use my ThermoWeb purple tape to help hold that down, because even though you work on a magnetic platform, it does shift. And I'm going to skip through me doing all of that and spare you the agony of having to watch that. Literally, I just run it through over and over and over again. So I have the components of the page all laid out here. I am going to cut down this striped piece of paper so that I can create a border up the top there. I just like the way that this pattern paper has all of the colors that I'm using in the layout, and it ties everything together. It also gives your eye some gradation, a transition from that really bright red that's really hard to edit, by the way, in photos, to the white. There's a stark contrast there, and that stripe gives your eye a transition phase as it moves down the page. While things are laid out horizontally across the page, because they're fairly consistent across the two pages, I feel like your eye moves down the page, like down the left-hand side of the page as if you were reading, and then over down from the top to the bottom of the right-hand side page. That's how my eye reads this layout anyway. So I am going to adhere those down. When I'm working on a double page layout, I like to try and work as I go so that I can have that consistency that moves across the page, or something that ties the left to the right. And I feel like if I adhere things as I go with my double page layouts, I am much more successful in creating that unity and consistency that I'm looking for. So again, this is where the photos are going to be housed. There's a little bit of piecing that needs to go on here because I want all of those stripes to move in the same color form from left to right. You will see that the white cardstock on the left-hand side of the page is 6 plus 3, 9 inches, but the one on the right is actually longer than that. And I did that intentionally because I knew I wanted that card under Merry Christmas to extend off the left-hand side. And I also wanted to have something a little bit different on one of the pages. And so what I've struggled with, you can see this all goes down easily, but how am I going to fill that 2-inch space? And it may actually, it's 1.5 inch gap there. When I set out with this layout, you can see I have that pink documented card that came with the kit, and I do like it, but I'm a white background kind of gal, and I didn't like the way that the pink went with the red. I'm not a huge fan of pink and red together. Sometimes it's appropriate, but not here. And so I will change that up. So now I'm figuring out the spacing of my photos. I will be honest with you, and I will tell you that as I lay these photos down, I forget that I've got less space on the left-hand side than I have on the right-hand side. And so when I get to that 6th photo, I'm like, oh, wait, I have a big white gap here that I haven't accounted for. So I will take care of that, and you'll see how that comes together in a little bit. So as I alluded to earlier, these are 6 of our favorite or things that happened in the month of December in 2019. They're things that stood out in my mind. So see how they're all squished on the left-hand side, and then there's that gap on the right-hand side. So I am going to shift them all over, which works perfectly because if I can on a double page spread, I do like to have one element that extends from the left to the right so that you can see they're supposed to be together. And I can cut that photo with the 4 of us, our family of 4, at the movie theater, and it'll work perfectly. Nobody's face will get cut in half. Nobody will be dismembered. So it ends up working out well. I also like how the contrast in that photo is in the center there, and that obviously is why I stuck that photo there. So just going to adhere those down, and then I'm going to use my labels to label each of the photos, but I want to figure out where they're going to go first so that I can get the right direction of the labels from the Christmas tabs stamp set. So a very traditional use of that stamp set, using it to actually label things, in this case photos. And what I will caution you with this is that there are different lengths of phrases. So there are some that are just words, and there are some that are phrases, like for example, Christmas pajamas. So that second picture from the right hand side, I wanted to label Christmas pajamas, but I used the medium size label so that I'll call it the file folder label, and Christmas pajamas does not fit in there. It only fits in the tab that I used to create that green border with. So I had to go back and revisit what words I was going to use, which is fine because if you look at it, I can't count and I can't tell you. Well, I can count, but I can't count it right now while I'm trying to talk to you. But there are a lot of words on there to choose from. And, you know, some of them like, oh, December, or happy December, or document, are perfectly suitable words as well. I had just originally intended to label the event like the wreath on the right hand side says decorating. I will skip through all of that stamping because you really truly do not need to see me stamp. It's literally just inking it up and stamping it. So then another thing that I like to do, similar to what I did with that green border at the bottom, I'm going to use the black from that same stamp to create again another border, but this is going to be a straight line border, and it doesn't end up working out as well as I have been able to do in the past because I do stamp partly on the paper, and so I'm going to cover part of that up. But I really like the way that that little hint of black there ties the bottom of the layout into, or I shouldn't say the layout, but of that strip into the top of that strip up there. So that, again, a very traditional use of the stamp, and then the not so traditional use using the masking to get that border. There is you can buy special tape for masking. I know Gina K from Thermo Web has some of that, but honestly, I just use a sticky note, and I use the sticky part of the sticky note to cover the stamp, and it sticks and holds perfectly. Ink it up, take that sticky note off, and then go. And I will use that sticky note over and over again. So this is where I am going to replace that pink card with the documented card. So those are sold separately. They are not part of the kit. The pink one was part of the kit. I highly recommend that documented 4x6 journaling tag. I have used it, I think with this kit, I've created 5 layouts already, and I pretty much have used it on all of them. I think it, and I do know that it's one of my pages in my document December as well. So what I'm looking for here is, am I going to keep that green card or am I going to replace it? And then what am I going to put on that 1.5 inch space there? I really liked the way that a full card fit in there and you had that symmetry from left to right. And I really liked that gray because it pulled in a less dominant color, but I didn't like that gray plaid sitting next to that red plaid, which is why I then looked for another card, but I didn't like it. So I'm going to go with these pink polka dots. And off camera, I'm fairly certain off camera, I end up doing this after the fact. I don't like that gaping space on the left-hand side that I have. So I'm actually going to use 2 strips of this pink, the strip there, and then I'm going to put a corresponding strip on the top left-hand side. And I like the way that that unites the layout and pulls it together. So there's that another element that is on both edges of the page there. And you'll see that in the close-ups, how that pulls it all together there. So I am just going to set to embellishing the page. Really, there's a lot of color and a lot busy on the page already. So it doesn't need a whole lot in the way of embellishments, but I've used the Very Merry chipboard stickers, and I'm using phrases, dies from the actual kit. That's what that top green one, it says around here, and I'm just popping it up on some foam. That black label there, it says a busy time of year. Again, popping that up on some foam just for some dimension. And I really like the way that that black contrasts with the black in that center photo there and sort of tones that down so that isn't the only dark element that is on the page there. I want to have a few more goodies on that top left-hand side, so I'm using that white star from the Very Merry chipboard stickers, and then later I will go in with, these were released with the document December. They have the Christmas Tiny Shapes and Dots puffy stickers. I'll use a few of those that are actually off the page so that it breaks out of that grid. See how that tab on the right hand side in that mint green sticks out of the grid? I like that. It breaks up the rigidity of a boxed layout. So if you have a couple of things sprinkled off the page, there's the teeny tiny ones. It just it gives your eye a rest from all four walls. In a sense there. I like the color contrast between that mint green and the pink, and then I will off camera use another one of those tiny stars, and then I am going to fussy cut from that gray 4x6 card that I had that's part of the kit. I will just cut out some stars, and I'll put a gray star with that pink, and then I'm also going to do the same thing on that wood frame. So that wood frame journaling card, actually, I'll come back to that. I'm sorry. I'm stamping here. So again, I'm using one of the phrases from the current from the Christmas tabs. And what I've done is I've created a border there. I'm going to go in later with a teeny tiny red pen and just put a small dot between each of the Hello Decembers to just kind of break that up a little bit. But I love using word phrases as borders as well. I've done that quite a bit. So where I'm working right here, that wood grain that you see, that wood grain paper is from the Fa La La paper stack, and I have used the new, I never get the name right, let me try this, the pocket frame and flip up die. It is back in stock. It's sold out super quickly, and I highly recommend that if you didn't pick one up, run to the store now and treat yourself and get that extra frame. So what I've used there is the extra frame, or one of the three that come in that, to just create that little notched edge there. I've put some vellum in it so that it's a flip up pocket, and I have actually journaled underneath there. So on the journal card to the left, I'm going to tell you what each of those 6 things are, but on the right hand side, I have some journaling that just talks about how it's a busy month, but we try and keep the emphasis on Christmas and family time and blah, blah, blah. So then my title is currently, and I am going to use these medium Jane alpha stamps. So again, if you did not pick those up at the last release, they are super awesome. I like that I can fit longer titles in these 4x6 cards with this medium size alpha. I love the larges, and I absolutely love the dies that coordinate with them. But having this other size is fantastic because you can, like I said, get those longer titles into that card there. And so that is what I'm using that 4x6 card for, is to house my title, as well as, I guess, that subtitle that would be a busy time of year. And you can see how I was able to use that stamp to add a little black to it so that the top of the card and the bottom of the card kind of tie together, and there's some unity in that. So I just am going to line up the word. I put it down on the card first, picked up the stamps, and then made sure that they were more accurately aligned by laying them, there you go, lining them up with a straight edge, which I just used the red border of the red pattern cardstock. So I am going to ink up that stamp and just stamp that down. There are 2 R's in currently, obviously, and so I'm going to just pull that up, stick that down on a single smaller stamp block, and then repeat that R there. Now, I have used these before, so I have not had to go over them with the eraser, but I will tell you the first couple of times that I used these stamps, I definitely did need to use the eraser, and you can see how I've got a much more consistent holding and color of the ink there because I had done that previously. So just a little tip for those of you that are kind of new to stamping. So that, my friends, is my double page layout focusing on the Christmas tab stamp. I am going to make a sketch out of this, which I will post, I don't know, somewhere because I haven't done that yet, but I do think that it's a great way of using up the Elle Studio pocket cards on a double page layout as well. So enjoy the close-ups. Thanks for stopping in today. There's an affiliate link or 2 down below if you want to do some shopping. If you have any questions about any of the product, don't hesitate to ask. I hope you're doing well. Take care. Come back again soon.